They cut down the only thing my wife left behind and sold it like it was just another slab of wood. So I walked into their showroom a week later and quietly decided I was going to take everything they had, every table, every chair, every dollar they thought they made off my life. And the crazy part is, they had no idea what they'd just started. I had been gone for 6 months, working a contract down in Antarctica, which sounds a lot more exciting than it really is. Mostly just long days, white nothingness, and too much time in your own head. But I took the job because I needed distance, not from the world, but from the house, from the silence, from everything that still smelled like her. My wife, Laura, passed 3 years before that trip, and people like to say time heals things, but what they don't tell you is time just makes the quiet louder. Before I left, I walked the property like I always did, slow, no rush, just checking fences, looking at the horizon, letting my thoughts settle, and I always ended up in the same place, right near the back ridge where the oak tree stood. We planted that tree together our first year on the land, back when everything felt like it was just beginning, when we still argued about where to put the porch and whether we needed a bigger kitchen. She wanted shade, said one day we'd sit under that tree when we were old and pretend we'd figured life out. I laughed at the time, told her we'd probably still be arguing about paint colors, but we planted it anyway. By the time I left for Antarctica, that tree was massive, about 80 feet tall, thick trunk, branches stretching out like it owned the sky, and every time I came home from a trip, that was the first place I went, not the house, not the mailbox, straight to that tree, like checking in with her. Now, my property sits on about 7 acres, nothing fancy, just land I worked for over the years, and about a year before I left, the old mechanic shop next door got bought out and turned into one of those high-end artisan furniture places. You know the type, reclaimed wood, exposed brick, everything smells like sawdust and money, tables that cost more than a used truck, and people walking around talking about craftsmanship like they just discovered the concept. I didn't think much of them at first, just new neighbors trying to build something, and I kept to myself, waved when needed, didn't get involved. That's just how I am. But when I got back in early March, still jet-lagged, still adjusting to normal air and color and noise, I drove straight from the airport to the house. Didn't even unpack, just dropped my bag and headed out back. Same routine as always, slow steps, familiar path. Except something fell off before I even saw it. You ever have that feeling where your brain notices something missing before your eyes catch up? Like the world is just slightly wrong. I walked a little faster, then stopped. Because the tree was gone. Not damaged, not split, not struck by lightning, just gone. All that was left was a clean stump, low to the ground, with fresh chainsaw marks still bright against the wood, sawdust scattered like it had happened yesterday, and I just stood there for a second, not moving, not breathing right, trying to make sense of it. 43 years of growth erased. And the thing is, I didn't yell, I didn't kick anything, I didn't even curse. I just felt this slow, heavy pressure build in my chest, like something settling in, something cold and clear. Because trees don't just disappear. Someone took it, and there was only one place they could have taken it to. I turned, looked over toward the workshop next door, the one with the big glass windows and the polished sign out front. Redwood Atelier, that's what they called it, real fancy name for a place that used to fix oil leaks and brake pads. I walked back inside, grabbed my keys, and drove over there. Now, I remember thinking as I parked, just ask questions, maybe there's some explanation, maybe it's a mistake, maybe something reasonable. But the second I stepped inside that showroom, I knew exactly what happened. The place was filled with oak. Not just any oak, my oak. You spend enough time around something, you know it, the grain, the color, the way it bends light. It was all there, shaped into these pristine, polished pieces, laid out under warm lighting like they were art. There was a massive dining table right in the center, probably 10 feet long, smooth finish, natural edges left intact, price tag hanging off the side, $12,000. Next to it, a coffee table, smaller but just as carefully crafted, tagged at $4,800, and a matching bench off to the side. I walked closer, slow, heart steady now, eyes scanning the surface, and that's when I saw it. Faint, almost invisible unless you knew where to look, but it was there. A carving, 2 initials inside a heart. D and L, carved crooked, uneven, done with a pocket knife decades ago. We did that the summer after we planted the tree, laughing about how stupid it was, like something out of a bad movie. And there it was, still alive under a layer of sanded wood and glossy finish, like it refused to disappear completely. I ran my fingers over it, felt the slight dip where the blade had cut in, and for a second, everything else faded out. The lights, the room, the noise, just me and that mark. And then a voice behind me said, "Beautiful piece, isn't it?" I turned. Guy in his late 30s, beard trimmed just enough to look intentional. Wearing one of those aprons people wear when they want you to know they make things with their hands. He smiled like he owned the place. Which I guess he did. "Yeah," I said, still looking at the table. "Where'd you get the wood?" He stepped closer, confident, casual. "We source locally when we can, premium white oak, sustainably harvested, fully permitted." I nodded once, then pointed at the carving. "You noticed that?" He leaned in, squinted a little, then shrugged. "Character marks adds authenticity." I looked at him then, really looked, and said, "That's not a character mark. That's my name." He blinked, smile fading just a bit. Not gone, just adjusted. "Sir," he said, slower now, "we acquired all materials through proper channels. Everything's documented." "From my land?" I asked. He hesitated just long enough to answer the question without saying it. "We were cleared for harvesting on the adjacent property," he said, choosing his words carefully. "If there's a concern, you're welcome to take it up with our legal team." And just like that, it clicked. They didn't make a mistake. They made a decision. And standing there, in that showroom, looking at pieces of my life laid out with price tags attached, I realized something. I wasn't going to argue with him. I wasn't going to shout, or threaten, or make a scene. Because this wasn't about a misunderstanding anymore. This was about something else entirely. And I already knew how it was going to end. I didn't say another word to him after that. Just nodded once, like I'd heard everything I needed to hear, and walked out of that showroom with this strange kind of calm sitting in my chest. Not the kind that means you're okay, but the kind that means you've already decided what comes next. The air outside felt different, heavier somehow, and I just stood there for a second in the parking lot, looking back at that glass storefront, watching him through the window as he went right back to adjusting price tags like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just told a man to go talk to a lawyer about something that used to be alive. That's when I realized people like him don't think they're doing anything wrong. Not really. They wrap it in words like sourced and curated and bespoke, and suddenly it all sounds clean, like no one got hurt in the process. But I knew better. I drove home slow, no music, just the sound of gravel under the tires and my own thoughts lining up one after another. And the more I thought about it, the clearer it got. This wasn't just about the tree. It was about the fact that someone walked onto my land, took something that mattered, and turned it into a product, and then had the nerve to defend it like it was business as usual. When I got back inside, I didn't sit down, didn't rest. I went straight to the old filing cabinet in the corner of the living room, the one Laura always said I'd regret keeping everything in, and I started pulling folders. Property deed, survey maps, old tax documents. I spread them out across the table, flipping through page after page until I found the one I needed, the official boundary survey, stamped and signed, with every line and measurement clearly marked. And there it was, that tree, sitting a full 6 feet inside my property line. No gray area. No confusion. They didn't accidentally cut it. They crossed the line, literally. I leaned back in the chair, staring at that paper, and for the first time since I got home, I felt something close to anger. Not loud, not explosive, just steady and focused, like a switch had been flipped somewhere deep inside. I got up, walked over to the bookshelf, and pulled down an old photo album, the kind people don't really keep anymore, flipped it open, and there we were. Me and Laura, standing next to that little sapling, both of us younger, smiling like we had all the time in the world, dirt on our hands, sunlight in our eyes. I turned a few more pages. There was the wedding photo we took out back, that tree just barely visible behind us. And then another one. Years later, during her memorial, chairs set up under its branches, people gathered in quiet circles, the tree casting shade over everything like it was still doing its job. I sat there longer than I expected to, just looking at those pictures, letting it all settle. And then I closed the album, stood up, and picked up my phone. I didn't call a lawyer. I called someone else. A guy named Ron Halpern. I'd worked with him years back on a research project, environmental recovery stuff. He ran a salvage and reclamation company. the kind of business that deals with materials after things go wrong. Fires, floods, legal disputes, you name it. He answered on the second ring. Haven't heard from you in a while, he said, voice the same as I remembered, rough around the edges but steady. Got a situation, I told him. He laughed a little. You always do. Not like this, I said, and I meant it. There was a pause on the other end, just long enough for him to hear something in my tone. All right, he said, more serious now, talk to me. So I did. I told him about the tree, about the workshop, about the furniture, about the carving. He didn't interrupt, just listened, and when I finished, there was another pause. Do you have proof it's yours? He asked. I have everything, I said. Good, he replied. Because if what you're saying is accurate, we're not talking about a complaint. We're talking about stolen property. That word sat heavy for a second. Stolen. Can you move fast? I asked. Ron chuckled again, but this time it had an edge to it. Depends, how fast do you need? I thought about the showroom, about the price tags, about that man's voice telling me to go talk to a lawyer, and then I remembered something else. A poster on the wall, near the entrance. Spring Showcase event. This Saturday. 10 new pieces debuting. Invited press. Champagne reception for serious buyers. For days away. I need it done before Saturday, I said. There was a beat. Then, all right, Ron said. Then we're going to do this right. The next few days moved quickly, but not in a rushed way. More like everything was falling into place exactly when it needed to. I gathered every document I had, made copies, organized them into a clean, undeniable timeline. Ownership, location, history. I reached out to the county office, filed the necessary reports, pushed for an emergency review, and when they saw the evidence, really saw it, things started to shift. A sheriff got involved. Then a forensic arborist, a specialist who could analyze wood grain, growth rings, confirm origin with a level of precision most people don't even realize exists. Turns out, trees carry signatures just like people do, patterns in the rings, density shifts, environmental markers, and when they compared samples from the stump on my land to the finished pieces in that showroom, it was a match. Not close. Exact. By Friday afternoon, everything was in motion. Paperwork signed. Orders approved. Timing locked in. And through all of it, I didn't go back to that workshop, didn't call, didn't warn them. I just let them keep preparing for their big event, let them polish their tables, chill their champagne, invite their clients. Because the truth is, the more they set up, the more there would be to take back. Saturday morning came quiet. I woke up early, earlier than I needed to, and for a moment, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house, the same house that had felt too big, too empty for years, but that morning, it felt different. Not full, but steady. I got dressed, simple, nothing special, grabbed the folder with all my documents, and stepped outside. The air was cool, a little crisp, the kind of morning that makes everything feel sharp, and as I walked past the spot where the tree used to stand, I stopped. Just for a second, looked down at the stump, ran my hand over the rough edge where it had been cut, and I said quietly, I got it from here. Then I turned, got in my truck, and drove over. When I pulled into their lot, the place was already buzzing, staff moving in and out, setting up tables, arranging displays, unloading boxes, everything clean, organized, like they were about to host something important. And they were, just not the event they thought. I checked my watch. 9:58 a.m. Guests weren't scheduled until 11. Perfect. I stepped out of the truck, and right on cue, another vehicle pulled in behind me. County Sheriff. And behind him, 3 large salvage trucks, engines idling low, waiting. I took a breath, straightened up, and started walking toward the front door. Because at exactly 10:00 a.m., everything was about to change. At exactly 10 a.m., I pushed the door open and stepped inside like I belonged there. And in a way, I guess I did. The place smelled the same as before, fresh cut wood, polish, that faint hint of something expensive trying to feel rustic. Except this time, there was movement everywhere, staff adjusting displays, someone pouring champagne into flutes behind a long table near the back, soft music playing through hidden speakers. It all felt staged, like a set waiting for its audience. And then the room started to shift. Not all at once, just small things, a conversation cutting short, a glance in my direction, someone noticing the sheriff walking in behind me, Then the men from Ron's crew stepping through the door in work boots and reflective jackets, carrying clipboards instead of wine glasses. That's when Marcus appeared. Same apron, same carefully managed beard, but this time his expression didn't quite land where it was supposed to. He smiled, but it was tighter now, forced around the edges. "Hey," he said, walking toward me, hands slightly raised like he was trying to control a situation that hadn't fully revealed itself yet. "We're actually closed right now, private event prep." The sheriff stepped forward before I had to say anything. "Sir," he said, calm, official, holding out a folded document. "We have a court order." That word, order, it cuts through everything. Marcus blinked, looked at the paper, didn't take it at first, like maybe if he didn't touch it, it wouldn't apply to him. "I'm sorry, what is this regarding?" I stepped forward then, just enough to be in his line of sight. "Stolen property," I said, and you could see it hit him. Not all at once, first confusion, then recognition, then something closer to panic trying to stay hidden under professionalism. That's not accurate," he said quickly, finally grabbing the paper, scanning it, eyes moving faster as he read. "We acquired all materials legally. We have permits, we have. From my land." I cut in, not raising my voice, just stating it. The room had gone quiet now, completely quiet. Even the music felt like it had pulled back. The sheriff gestured toward the space. "This order authorizes the immediate seizure of all items identified as originating from the complainant's property." One of Ron's guys stepped forward, flipping open his clipboard. "We've got a full inventory list," he said, matter of fact, already looking around the room like he was measuring it in pieces instead of decor. Marcus shook his head, took a step back. "You can't just come in here and take everything. We have clients. We have contracts. This is insane." And that's when the arborist spoke up. He had come in quietly, older guy, gray hair, the kind of person you don't notice until he starts talking. "We've already verified the material," he said, holding up a folder, grain patterns, growth rings, density markers. They matched the stump sample from his property exactly, including a section with a carved inscription. Marcus looked at him like he'd just spoken another language. I didn't. I just walked over to the coffee table, the one with the carving, and ran my hand over that faint heart again. "You sanded it," I said, almost to myself, "but you didn't erase it." He didn't respond, because there wasn't anything left to say. The first piece they moved was the big one, the dining table in the center. Two men came in with straps, careful but efficient, lifting it like it was just another job, another object, and for a second, I felt something twist in my chest watching it move. Not because it was leaving, but because it was coming back. Marcus stepped forward, voice rising now, losing control. "This is my inventory. You're destroying my business. Do you have any idea what this event means?" I turned to him, met his eyes fully for the first time since I walked in. "Do you?" I asked. He froze, and for a moment, you could see it, the gap between what he thought this was and what it actually was. "This wasn't inventory," I said, slower now, each word landing where it needed to. "This was my life." The trucks kept loading. Table after table, chairs, benches, wall panels, everything made from that tree was tagged, documented, and carried out. Staff stood off to the side, unsure whether to intervene, afraid to get involved, watching something unravel in real time that they probably didn't even understand. By the time the second truck was half full, Marcus wasn't arguing anymore. He was pacing, phone in hand, calling someone, probably a lawyer, probably anyone who could make this stop. But there are moments in life where things have already moved too far, where no call is going to rewind what's happening in front of you. At one point, he came back over to me, voice lower now, almost desperate. "We can fix this," he said. "Whatever this is, we can work something out, compensation, a deal." I shook my head. "You already made your deal?" I said. And that was it. By noon, the showroom was empty. Not completely. The walls were still there, the lighting, the polished concrete floors, but everything that mattered, everything they were about to present to the world, was gone. All that was left were small white tags hanging from empty spaces, little strings leading to nothing. Right around that time, the first guests started arriving. You could see it through the glass, people stepping out of cars, dressed nice, curious, expecting champagne and handcrafted luxury, and instead, they walked into silence. Marcus was sitting on the floor by then. Actually sitting. back against the wall, legs stretched out, staring at the space where that big table used to be, like he was trying to understand how it all disappeared so fast. No one greeted the guests. No one explained. They just stood there, confused, looking around at a showroom that felt like it had been cleared out overnight by something bigger than a sale. I didn't stay for that part. I walked out, passed them on the way, and got back into my truck. And for the first time since I came home, I felt something lift. Not everything, but enough. By 2 p.m., the story was already spreading. Local news picked it up first. Luxury furniture showcase shut down amid theft allegations. Then it moved online, headlines getting sharper, less forgiving. People love a story like that, especially when it flips the script on someone who thought they were untouchable. By Tuesday, I got word their insurance company refused to cover the loss. Turns out, policies don't usually protect you from your own decisions, especially when those decisions involve stolen material. And by Wednesday, I got the call. Marcus's lawyer. Different tone this time. No confidence, no polished language, just urgency. He's willing to settle, the lawyer said. He doesn't want this to go further. I leaned back in my chair, looked out the window toward the back of the property, toward that empty space where the tree used to stand. Good, I said. Because I do. There was a pause. Then, what are your terms? I had already thought about it. Not in anger, not in revenge, just in clarity. $95,000, I said. That covers the assessed value of everything taken, plus damages. A longer pause this time. And he asked. Public apology, I added, written, signed, and printed in the local paper. I want people to know exactly what happened. And the material? He asked carefully. Every scrap, I said. Whatever's left, whatever hasn't been sold or shipped, it comes back. Silence again. Then, I'll speak with my client. They agreed the next day. Every condition. Money transferred. Apology printed. Wood returned, what little remained after everything they'd already cut and shaped. And just like that, it was over. Or at least, legally, it was. Because the truth is, some things don't go back to the way they were. I never replanted that tree. People asked me why, said I could start over, grow something new, but that's not really how it works, is it? You don't replace 43 years. You don't recreate a memory just because you have the space for it. So I left it. The stump's still there. Not as a reminder of what I lost, but as a reminder of what people are capable of, both the ones who take and the ones who decide not to let that be the end of the story. And I'll be honest with you, part of me still wonders if I went too far. Not legally, that part was clean, but everything else. The timing, the way it all unfolded, the fact that I waited, let them build it all up just to take it back in front of everyone. Some people would call that justice. Others might call it something else. So I'll leave that part up to you. If you were in my place, would you have done the same thing, or would you have handled it differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read more of them than you'd think. And if stories like this stick with you, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's got a strong opinion about what's right and what's just, because sometimes the line between the two isn't as clear as we want it to be.